So thanks for being on, Nick. A lot of our members know kind of where you're at, and they know the things that you've built at Elon. But for those that don't know, or anybody that's new listening, go ahead and fill them in on who you are and where you've been for the last 5 years.
Yeah, so Nick DeMarco, like you said, currently the Assistant Athletic Director for Sports Performance at Elon University. Got here in March of 2018. Before that, I worked at Iowa with Justin and a lot of other great staff members. And prior to that, I interned at the University of Iowa in 2013 and interned during my undergrad at William Penn University. So only really 3 stops along the way here.
So for you and the things that you've been able to build there, what do you think was the key to your success? And what would be your piece of advice to any of the listeners out there that are either just taking over a department or aspiring to take over a department?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that most people fail at when they take a director role is they're used to be an assistant for just one sport and not doing a good enough job of building relationships with every sport coach. Like my day-to-day function is as a director, but also as the person in charge of leading our football training. And I think most people just dive so far into football training and they forget to cater to the other 15 plus teams on campus. And if you have one coach who's saying that you're doing a tremendous job, and that's the football coach, and everyone else thinks you're doing a really bad job, then you're probably doing a really bad job. So I think losing sight of the fact that you are a director in charge of an entire department is priority one. So when I got here, meeting with every single coach, trying to figure out what they viewed as a weakness in our department and trying to eliminate at least one weakness that they all brought up instantly, to where from day one, you can get massive buy-in from all of the teams on campus. Because the quickest way to make people happy is take something that they're upset about and turn it into something positive. And it's usually whatever they consider a weakness. And then from there, the biggest thing at this point, we've had a lot of staff turnover in our part-time positions. Our full-times have been very, very stable since I've been here. But if you get the right people, it just makes a world of difference. Like, I don't need to go watch Cam Ringstead lead a basketball group to know he's doing a great job. He's been here for 5 years. Jordan Nusma, who actually just accepted a new position, but he's been here for 4.5 years, coming up on 5 years. Hunter Bell, one of our other full-time staff members, Brandon Robinson before that. All of these guys are doing a tremendous job, and they help, along with me, coach our part-times. And a lot of times your part-times become full-times hopefully stay there. Your part-times and your assistants train your interns, and really it's just continues to evolve, and everyone really understands kind of the standards and expectations. And if you have really good people on staff, they're going to give the athletes a great service, who in turn relay that to their sport coaches. Sport coaches tell the administrators, and it works its way up the chain. I think a lot of people try and impress administrators first, when in reality you have to serve the athletes, and that is going to carry on and get to the people you want it to get to.
How did you build up such a robust internship program? Because that's kind of the big thing that I want to talk about with you today, is because people do know how good you are at doing exactly what you said. People intern for you, they're part-time, they're full-time, or they get a job. How were you able to grow that in something that, like you said, where there were so many other coaches, sport coaches before you, saying like, hey, these are things that need to be taken priority? How did you balance that while building that internship program?
Yeah, I think your interns really just help close up any of those gaps, because a lot of time it's just, hey, we want more service. So for us, it was 2 big things that I got lucky with. Is we had a second weight room built that started, and it was completed like 6 months into my tenure here. So everyone's scheduling got immensely easier, because now I can train a group in one weight room, someone can train a group in the other, and like, oh, Nick's doing a great job. When in reality, there's a huge element of luck that we just had 2 places to train people. But then from there, developing our staffing. So since I've been here, we've added 2 positions, and we've added about 70,000 to our salary pool in total across 5 years. And I think the big thing for us in developing an internship program, and what a lot of our interns have become the best salesmen that we can have is, one, they have a really enjoyable experience. They're not just stuck cleaning, like they're coaching on the floor. They're getting coached an absolute ton. Like daily, they're going to have education, whether it's formal or informal, or self-led or coach-led. They're getting some form of education. So I feel like they learn a lot in the process. And everybody basically knows coming in, year after year, we've hired our best intern. And I think, you know, part-time positions or GAs get a bad rap because they're underpaid, this and that. But the reality is, like, you kind of get what you deserve at a certain point. And I my first position in Iowa, I made like 12 grand. It's not like, oh, I made a degree that hasn't really prepared me to and learn. And that leads to better opportunities down the line. And I think when our interns come in and they know basically that they're fighting for one of those spots, and to this point, we're 9 for 9. Everybody who's had a part-time spot has left within 1 year for a full-time paid position elsewhere. The longer it gets, the easier it is because we have a good track record. But doing everything we can to cater to the interns. So 2 of the summers here, we've been able to get free housing for them on campus, which is a big deal because if you're taking out loans or you're asking your parents for money to intern, that can be really hard. But I think at this point, it's really a matter of we just have a good track record. People know if they come here. This year, we were 4 for 4 on everyone that is graduated looking for a job, was able to get a job. Last year, we were like 8 for 8 across the board because everyone was a little bit older. So I think it kind of speaks for itself at this point. But early on, I think it was using social media as a powerful tool that it can be, and just sharing a lot of education. And people, if nobody knows who you are, like the thing, what's Keir say, the Johnny Depp quote, like the worst pirate I've ever heard of, but you have heard of me. Like nobody knows about Elon Athletics typically, but I'd say at this point, a lot of people know about Elon Sports Performance just through social media. So being really intentional with building that up and intentional about posting multiple times per week and trying to post educational material that hopefully people who are aspiring to be interns or young coaches see it and they're like, oh, I like what this group is doing, piques their interest. If nobody's heard of you, you're not going to be able to recruit interns. And honestly, the first batch of interns, we just got lucky. Cam Ringstead, who, like I said, he's been full-time now for 5 years. He was one of our first interns. The next year, we already had a little bit of momentum through social media and just some connections through our staff. We had a guy from Springfield College. We had brought in like 2 more Springfield College guys, so it just creates a chain there. Then you get Chula Loomis came down here. He creates his own chain of people. Concordia St. Paul has been a big school that we've gravitated towards. So as soon as you get like one school in the door, they go tell their friends. And I think if the people have a good experience in your internship program or as an assistant for you, they're going to be a far better salesman than you could ever be for your department. And at this point, our interns really sell our internship program for us.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, that thing's like up and running on its own. You just mentioned that Jordan's leaving. Is Jordan the point of contact, or is Cam the one that does it? And then how involved are you? Because like you said, you still have to be running the whole department. So how involved do you get within the entire process of, working with your interns?
Yeah, I used to be a lot more involved early on, but at this point, I think of it more as I haven't like trained our staff. Like we really built our system together. Our original staff of myself, Cam, Jake Niederman, Brandon Robinson, and Jordan, all together really kind of decide what we want to do. And now we make kind of changes along the way and keep refining the system, but we have a good system in place. And so the coaches really firmly understand everything we're doing. They're educated on why we do everything. So Jordan is the point of contact for the internship program for the past 2 years. Prior to that, Cam was. And Jordan and the assistants really stuff. I'll have a little bit more like informal conversations and I'll do a presentation here and there. But most of the education is handled by them. And then we actually break it up. So this semester, summer semester, we had 8 interns and all of our coaches on staff took 2 interns and they were set aside to develop those two. So they would meet with them weekly, more individualized meetings of, hey, here's kind of your strengths and weaknesses. Here's what you need to improve. They would look over their assignments, and then I'll look over everyone's assignments and just kind of give them notes here and there where I see fit. But they'll handle a lot more of the deeper day-to-day education stuff.
So for anybody that's interested in it, and you mentioned the free housing thing, you're not only just pulling from, students on campus, but people from all over, choosing to come down and have the opportunity. And I know Fernando had questions about, overseas, because he's been getting questions about it, through Strength Coach Network. But
yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
as you know, oh, sorry, I cut you in.
No,
You had a bit
go
of delay
for it,
because you're in the car. I'll definitely have like a specific case of someone that I actually spoke to you guys. I think he was talking to Jordan. He's an Argentinian living in New Zealand. So look at how far you can reach with Elon. But people admire the American sports setting a lot. The colleges get a lot of exposure, like you said. But specifically, your program, I think, has been outstanding in terms of like, we're not just a typical program. This like educational pathway. And even hearing you speak right now, there's more that you can see. So there's a big structure. But say if I were, which I'm at this point 50-50 convinced to intern for you, even though I have a job, but say I'm this random foreigner that's interested in there, and you always worry about the typicals. How do you get there? What qualifications do you need? What are you looking for? What's the sort of person? How would I prepare? Basically, how would I prepare to intern for you guys?
So we've actually had a lot of international interns. We had for he at the time for the West City Academy team came over here just because he had time off in the summer, and interned, went back. Now he works at Arsenal. And we've had probably Micus was at Greece. He works with one of the Greece national basketball teams. So we've had a lot of people come across the country. We've had quite a few Canadians, Cam Ringstead being one of them. He's a Canadian and United Kingdom citizen who he's actually in the process. He's working here on an H-1B visa, and he's in the process of getting his green card. So we have one international staff member on staff. So I think that's helped a little bit just because he understands the process. But the biggest selling point to me would be, if you want to work in the United States, at some point, you're just going to have to take the leap and come work in the United States, most likely for free or very low pay like Kier did when he came over to Richmond. And I think a big selling point, Jordan, who our past spring intern, he was a Canadian, and he just got hired full-time back in Canada, but he just came here to learn for the spring semester. But our interview process is not very stingent. I know some people are really picky, like, hey, we've got 3 interns, and I think a lot of it is kind of BS where, it's only 3 spots, it's limited availability, and they get like 2 applicants, and 1 spot left, like just kind of BS sales stuff. For us, we'll take as many interns we can get. As long as you are a decent character person, you can pass a background check, you're eager to learn, which if you're willing to move across the country, you've definitely proven that you're eager to learn, we'll take you, because I think it's your job to coach people up. Like, interns shouldn't have this huge knowledge base. Like, they're working for free. I think expecting somebody to have a CSCS and 3 years experience as an intern is just foolish. So we'll take anybody that wants to learn and has a good attitude. And we've had some people with next to no experience who have grown a ton. We've had 2 people who came here and they're like, hey, this just isn't for me, and backed out of it. They weren't international, luckily. They're both relatively local. They've, first 2 weeks, like, holy cow, this is intimidating. Like, you actually got to talk to people like a little bit more introverted and not for them. But most of our people, are experienced. We've had some come from GA positions that they held for 2 years. They're just trying to get a full-time job. So we've had people all over the map. And actually this summer, we had 4 of our, ended up being 7 interns were undergraduates. So they still have to go back and finish school and came here, and they were all phenomenal, and they grew a ton during the process. So I think
So
it's
when you're
really
doing that, how are you handling your internship curriculum? Because I know, like you just said, they're getting coached up. What if it's somebody that can't be there all the time? How are you handling that? You know, for anybody that's listening, that's a director, and they're like, hearing you say that might be like, holy shit, it's novel. You know, how do you guys handle having different schedules with people at different, you know, training ages, for lack of a better term, with their internship experience?
The big thing will just be like coaching. Like if someone comes in from a GA and they've had multiple exposures to coaching athletes, they'll be leading groups a lot quicker than some of our others. Like we want even the people that stink at leading a group to lead groups, but it has to be the right situation, because it also can't take away from the training of the athletes. Like we
your
have
actual job.
we have a set schedule, like Kara hours. You got to get shit done in an 8-hour window. So it can't be taken forever, and it can't sacrifice the training. So those who come in with a GA background or more experience typically are leading groups like day 1, day 2, getting a little bit more action. But from the education side, we train everybody really the same. We'll go through our principles of what's important to us, kind of our conduct of how we want to coach. We'll go through the lift card daily with everybody the same way, like you're teaching an incoming freshman, because just because you have a lot of experience, you don't necessarily have experience here. And it's not like a echo chamber of this is the only way to do it. Hopefully they have their own ideas, but this is the way that we do it. So while you're here as an intern, they need to learn what we're doing and adapt to it. And we're always open to suggestions. But everyone kind of starts from square one on the education side. And we're not teaching, NSCA textbook materials. We're teaching kind of our principles of why we do things and the underlying principles behind them, how we program, why, what our progressions look like. We're not going over, hey, here are the, underlying principles of the sliding filament theory. It's like, hey, here's our progression for agility, change direction, etc. So it's really scaled to everybody at any stage. And certainly some people pick up quicker on things. But we're trying to cover as many bases as we can in the education side. And we've automated a lot of it with, you do a internship in the spring, summer, fall, and you've had the same meeting as a assistant coach 6 times in a year. It's like, okay, that's not the best use of my time. So the things that we can record, we've just recorded on a presentation. And on Wednesday, interns go in the meeting room, turn on the presentation, watch it, take notes. And it doesn't create more work hours for us, but it's the same value for them. And then we have 20 minutes on the back end where they can ask us questions. So instead of, 45 to 50 minutes wasted on a coach just sitting there giving the same presentation over and over, our time is better served by covering a little bit deeper topics after that pre-recorded presentation.
Did you know that you were going to have this deep of an evolution with your internship program when you did the entire rebrand? Because it didn't used to be Elon Sports Performance, right? When you're in year 5 now, what was kind of that vision plan when you did rebrand it to Elon Sports Performance, and, having those meetings with those coaches? Because from what you and I talked about, there was no continuity. There was like a strength coach that was there every 1 year, like sometimes even shorter, like a month, and then they were gone.
Yeah. I always envisioned it, growing to where, I think with anything you want to being nationally known isn't a priority necessarily, but it's like, if you do a job, you want people to recognize that you're doing a good job. So I think becoming a nationally known group from a mid-major is perfectly possible. Like I think Donnell Boucher, I was watching some of his videos when I'm in high school and college and thinking, oh, it seems like they run a great program there, like actually committed to developing their coaches, things like that. Like I wanted us to become a respected organization who's doing a great job, not only by the coaches, but other people in the profession. And to me, from the feedback from the coaches, hey, every year we get a new strength coach, they're underpaid. Am I going to be able to get our part-time positions from, 20 hours per week to 40 hours with benefits, and we just change our whole structure? No chance. That's going to take time. We've added a full-time and we've added another part-time, but those things take time. What I can do is come in and create a system where, hey, we all have a lift card. We all save and share our data the same way. So like whether it's a P drive or now we use Microsoft SharePoint, everything is stored to where Justin Lima leaves for a new job, Fernando takes over. It's not, hey, square one, we got to get testing numbers on these guys because Justin left with all the data. Like, the data is on a shared space. You can go back and look at every lift card that men's tennis has done since 2019 and know where they're at, what they've done, what the testing numbers look like. So they're not having continuity of service from one coach, but they're having continuity of service from a systems perspective. And there are a lot of familiar faces with myself and Cam having a little bit longer tenure, and making sure that we have touch points with all those teams where they feel that continuity without having the exact same coach year in, year out.
And having the assistant athletic director title, that's new within the last year, 2 years?
Yeah, last year. So I was originally like the director of strength and conditioning. We changed it to sports performance just because I think it's a little bit more all encompassing. It's a good argument for some people who are meat sticks like strength and conditioning, but I just think it'd be like calling your defensive coordinator the coordinator of fronts and coverages. Like, it's just two pieces of the puzzle. We're here to try and help them be better at their performance overall. And then I became a member of our like administrative staff 3 years ago and moved up my title after the COVID situation where we were shut down. And I got involved in a lot more administrative meetings, things like that. So it's great from a job security standpoint, and just having a little bit more input on things more globally within the university, I think always goes a long way.
So given, that path that you took, and the AD role and rebranding, and, you were not in a position, you said we worked together at Iowa, you weren't at a place where you had all these other teams. What would be your piece of advice to coaches that maybe feel like they're niched and they feel like, man, I don't have my foot in other sports. How am I going to be able to do it? Give them their kind of your crash course on how to do it. And I don't think everybody else understands this. You were what, 24 when you took over, or 25?
25.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fuck. So again, so to the young people that are out there trying to establish themselves, what would be your point of view or way to help them understand, like, look, you can do it, and these are the quick and easy ways to be able to be like, look, I did work in only football, but this is how you can go about that path.
Yeah, I think having a sports background, it was a lot more multifaceted than just playing football. I grew up playing baseball, soccer, hockey, basketball, ran track. So I've always been a sports fanatic, and I've always been involved in other sports to some capacity. But coming in, it's like, hey, you're the football guy. So to me, originally, it's like, hey, I need to make these other 15 coaches as happy as I can. Making the football coach happy should be a very easy job. Just do a good job. Like, I'm in charge of that directly. Getting the other coaches to do a great job is where you can move the needle. And I think it's really easy because if you come in and just look at most departments, you look at some of your underserved teams that aren't revenue generating teams, whether it's a tennis program, a golf program, cross country, lacrosse, etc. You name it, outside of your football and basketball teams. A lot of times they might have a strength coach who he's in charge of the assistant with football. He's got men's basketball, he has men's soccer, and then he has one other team. And that is like his lowest effort. He's like, oh, I got to train this team. Like, to me, giving everybody one higher priority, high revenue team and a team that is lower revenue is the easiest way, one, to just balance your hours. Like, men's basketball takes a huge amount of time. Training baseball takes a huge amount of time. You pair baseball with golf, another rotational sport, or you pair it with lacrosse, and they only have two teams. It really stems from creating a good quality of life for your coaches. Because if you're burnt out and you've already been coaching for 8 hours and you got to go out there and train, 6 athletes at 7 p.m., of course you're going to be pissed off and do a good job. Like, I've heard the quote, oh, every time you coach a group, it's the athlete's first group, even if it's your 8th. But it's just a fact of life. Like, I'm tired at the end of the day if I've coached too many groups. So one is coming up with a equitable approach to the hours on the floor is a big deal. Instead of, hey, everyone has 2 teams, think about your team assignments from a hours coaching to where they have active hours and then they have their passive hours to learn, create new systems, program. do the things that they need to do. And if you have two teams that you really enjoy working with, you're going to pour into those teams and give them a better service. So I think it started with just having a better team distribution. And if you only have 2 teams, 3 teams, you're going to pour into those teams. You're just going out to practice and warming a team up goes such a long way, especially when it's in your normal day-to-day work hours. If you're out there for 15 minutes and you warm them up and you hang around, watch practice, like men's tennis, women's tennis, these teams love just seeing coaches out there who are really interested in what they're doing. And 2, if I go watch practice, it's the easiest way for me to learn the sport. Like any sport, if you take, everyone says reverse engineering down nowadays, but you watch the sport. Okay, what's the work to rest ratios? What are the main movements they're doing? The 3 Bs, bioenergetics, biodynamics, and biomotor abilities. You can work with any sport as simply as looking at it, breaking down those 3 key categories and work backwards from there, and then have conversation with the sport coaches. The quickest way to get someone happy is, hey, what do you think you need to improve? Oh, our hip mobility is bad, or lateral change of direction, or like just really ambiguous terms that don't mean anything. Like, oh, I've got the perfect drill for that. You show them that. You tell the athletes, hey, this is why they're doing it. Placebo, they say, oh, my hips feel so much better because this one drill, which it's just good training over time that's going to help. But all those things go into the athletes are happier, which leads to the coaches are happier, and goes to administration. And I think we just lose sight of the fact you're here to serve the athletes and make sure they get a high quality service. So as simple as when I first got here, there was teams where the coach didn't even go on the floor when a team was training. They were just hanging out in their office.
Strength and conditioning coach?
Oh, yeah. They had PowerPoints on a TV instead of lift cards. So, hey, we have a formatted lift card. Every team, I don't care. You're the last athlete who's a walk-on, first athlete, highest revenue generating sport, lowest, doesn't matter. Everyone gets a lift card. Everyone should have a performance prep run by a coach. You need to be on the floor coaching and just show the athletes you care. And it goes a long way. Even if you're not an expert at that sport, you can become an expert at any sport, because everything in the weight room by nature is general anyway. So you're just trying to get to understand the sport and get as specific as you can eventually, but most of it's just general adaptation syndrome anyway. So understand the key principles in the weight room, show the athletes you care. I think it just goes a long way.
Do you have any pushback from coaches when you were restructuring, when you said you added 2 coaches, so you're probably reassigning teams? Is there any issues or any pushbacks because like, oh, that's quote unquote my guy? Or did you have enough, leadership capital built up because of what you had done in your track record?
I would say everybody is resistant to change originally. And coaches don't know what they don't know. So, oh, we've had this guy for 5 years. He's done a terrible job for 5 years. Like, they don't know that. But, I think people just in general are really resistant to change. So at first there's a little bit of pushback, but as soon as they get a new coach and they do a great job, all of a sudden, oh, this guy's the best coach. We love him. He's our favorite coach we've had. The next coach, oh, I don't really want change. This kind of stinks. Oh, he's our favorite coach we ever had. I hate to see him leave. Said that the last 3 coaches. Like, it seems to be going fine. So I think as long as you continue to hire good people, you're always going to have a little bit of pushback. People just hate change. And it does stink for the athletes. Like, you'd love someone to have the continuity of service over 4 years. And that's our goal within the next year or 2, is to get 1 more full-time, and we'd have coverage for all of our sports with a full-time coach. You expect to be here multiple years instead of one and done situation. And our part-times we want to keep, just because I think it's huge in the field to have part-time spots, because there's just not enough jobs. So getting people in a spot where they can learn, get some coaching, lead groups, even though they're not leading a team. And then it just makes it like a farm system of, okay, this coach leaves. Well, hey, we've got this part-time who he's coached your team for 50 plus hours. He knows all the athletes. He plugs in. The coaches are less upset about the change because it's not really change. And it gives you, a year to evaluate somebody before they move up. And you have that extreme level of continuity at that point.
How do you handle the continuity of having the 2 weight rooms? Because you said there was a new one built. How do you handle that with the extreme organization that you've shown, occurs down there at Elon?
Honestly, it's really easy because Cam just does a phenomenal job. So I trust him to oversee a lot of what happens there, because, if I'm busy with football, which is typically at the time that like basketball is training in the afternoons, like I might not see a single basketball lift group for 4 months, but doesn't really matter because I know he's doing a great job. So it just goes back to getting the right people and having them here long enough that they know what is expected. And he does a tremendous job. He should be a director somewhere himself. Jordan's the same way. So when those two are the two housed over there in the Shar weight room, it really doesn't matter. You know that a great job is going to be done. And then just consistently checking in with coaches, I think goes a long way. So whether it's, once a month, every couple of weeks, just going by, seeing a practice, saying hi when they're in their office, trying to see lift groups just so the athletes know you're present too is a big deal. It's actually harder to do that for me in season than out of season, even though I have less active work. It's just my time slots are kind of bogged down. But Cam getting around, seeing other teams over there goes a long way too. But it really all stems back to just having the right people. Because if I, wasn't working at Elon, I think things would run the exact same way. Cam, Jordan, Hunter, everyone would pick up slack and do a great job no matter what.
It's interesting that you brought that up. How much of your time, in the off season, are you able to go to, whether it's meetings with other sport coaches or go to their practices or oversee their lifts, because you are the director and you have that AD title? How much of a premium did the, people in that athletic, department leadership, how much did they put a premium on, hey, we want you to do that? Or was that, again, you just deciding it to continue to build relationships with the coaches and the athletes?
Yeah, it's never been requested that I do that. It's more so just, I think you need to as much as you can to build those relationships and have the trust of everybody. In the off season, I think I could still do a better job of it. It's hard when you coach a couple groups, I'm pretty spent. I don't really want to hang around till 4 o'clock to watch this group, but it's just having the structure and just being really deliberate about your scheduling of, okay, every fourth Tuesday to hang around till 5, 6 o'clock, but set it up to where I don't come in till a little bit later in the day to where I can see some of those teams. I think goes a long way. Getting out to games is the easiest thing because I can take my family out there. Everyone sees that you're there supporting those teams, and it's just fun for your kids to be around other sports and go watch things. I think that's really helpful. But especially with our young coaches, it's great to see them lead a group to where you can give them feedback. So, Jordan's teams, Cam's teams, that's probably the least of my worries, even though they're high priority teams. I'll try and go out to their practices, go out to their games, but seeing them lift is almost a little bit of a waste of time. But anytime that they're out, I'll try and step in and take the groups anytime someone has to be away, just where I can lead groups and be around the athletes a little bit more. In a perfect system, I think if I wasn't working with football, say you had a men's and women's soccer, your two teams, and your just total hours of working was lower, I think that'd be the best way to do a director job. Or the ultimate is, what Bob Alejo's doing or other teams have tried to do, where you're truly just a director. And in my mind, the way I would run that is, hey, every day I want to lead a group of some team and get around, and it gives you, say you're in charge of men's basketball training. Hey, I'm going to lead the group on Monday. You just get to observe. For me, if someone else is leading a football group, in the summer when we've got a bunch of help, and me just getting to go around, have conversations, float, observe what's taking place instead of being so into running things that you lose sight and you don't have as good of observation. You don't get to have as many conversations. You almost learn more than when you're just dialed in, screaming out cadences and trying to coach people up. So if I could lead a group once a week for everybody and they get a chance to just observe, have more conversations, or if they just have stuff that they need to get done, which luckily for us, we're not overworked by any means. We have a pretty good setup, but give them a chance to do some of the passive things they need to do to be better as a coach, or even just take a day off, I think would be the optimal way to do things if you could do it.
Sounds like you have a very healthy leadership system. So what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Micromanaging, stepping on people's heads, making sure that your reign stays long, forever. Long live the king. Whoever steps head out of the water just gets chopped. What's wrong with you?
People make it out to be such a bad profession, but I really think if you do a good job and talking to people who have been at one place for a long time and, have the support of a lot of coaches, athletic departments, I used to worry so much about, I think people are doing a bad job 7 out of 10 times. So I might be like, oh, we got to help all these people. Like the reality is we want to have as big of an internship program as we can, put out good education, help as many young coaches as we can. But as long as you do a great job where you're at, like I could give a shit if somebody else is doing a great job at their school. Our job is to beat them anyway. You want athletes everywhere to have a great service and the field as a whole to be a little bit more glowing than having a black eye on it when bad things happen. But you can do a great job as long as you step into a job that you know you can succeed at. If you take a job as a director for $35,000 training 23 teams, of course you're going to be unhappy. It's a shitty job. So go somewhere else, boost up your resume, and there is elements of luck and connections to getting a great job. But if you take a bad job and you don't do anything to make it better, and then you just complain about it, it's really hard for me to get behind any of those people.
Yeah, I do agree. It's like maybe beyond sport as well, but it's this sort of like victimizing mediocrity. It's like, oh, look how much they're paying. Look what I have to do. It's like, well, you can always choose to leave and do something
Exactly.
else, unless you're like chained to your desk in the basement or whatever. But you know what I mean? Like people just make it up to be. I've seen people being, flat on jobs like forever and be like, oh, the admins, the team, the way the system is like, well, you've done nothing to change it. Not saying it can be changed, but
Yeah.
you have either three ways. So you either leave, you channel what's there into something better, or you just accept it. So or you go out and create your own university or whatever. But you know what I mean? Like,
Or you complain
staying,
about it.
yeah, staying and complain about it to every single person for 25 years sounds like a bad plan.
I think the easiest way to make things better is to have outside job offers. If you do a good enough job where you're at and you have chances to leave, you're always going to be able to get more when people know that you could leave, even though you want to stay. And I think you just got to push the envelope. Like you can't be upset when people say no, like it's just going to happen. But just keep pushing for more things, and the ability to say no more yourself, I think, is important. We'll get so overworked of trying to prove and validate what we do because it's so hard to quantify like what we do. So then it's like, oh, well, yeah, I'll discipline those guys at 5:30 a.m. Like that's one, should be illegal. I think is now at the NCAA level. And two, that shouldn't fall on you as the performance guy to be the punishment guy. But we just accept it because like, oh, I want to show these coaches that's what matters. And I'll be at every single staff meeting, even though I serve no purpose in there certain times, or just saying yes to everything doesn't give you the ability to do everything you want. So I think coming in early and establishing boundaries of, hey, we're going to give you the best service possible, but just being really deliberate with your time and making the most of it instead of saying yes to everything to please people. Just do a good job to please people. I think goes a lot further.
Yes, I reckon I'm 100% agree with you. It's also the ability to evolve yourself, because sometimes maybe when you get started, you do have to say yes, and there's less points for you to negotiate. But then as you grow, that's not what you have to be. At least that's how I see it. And the first time you say no after saying yes so many times, you feel like you're gonna get hit, but then you'll be like, okay, I said no, and like no one imploded, or maybe someone did. But
Yeah.
if not, you're gonna like dig yourself into a hole, and the more yeses you say, the harder it is to dig yourself out, and then you're just like neck deep, whatever, right?
Yeah, and I have quite a few friends who I've spoken to this about, where it's like, hey, say you're in football or men's basketball, and you're tied to this sport coach, and hey, I got to do everything I can to keep this guy as happy as I can. This is the one team I train. I want to be at everything. But what gets forgotten is if you're there for a 6 a.m. or some of these early morning lifts, and the staff doesn't get in until 9 o'clock and they're there till 5, like for you to be there from 6 to 5 is a heck of a day. Like you got to have some structure to what you're doing. You can't just be guarding your desk. And if you say a yes to everything to please them, but you're bitching about, oh, I work too many hours, I don't like this aspect of it, you're just going to the next job to make more money to just complain about the same things. Because if those are the expectations now when you go to the next job, so it's more money, the exact same problems, which isn't going to solve anything. So unless you can do something to make yourself happy in that role, it's just going to burn you out eventually. And I think that's why you see so many people 5, 6, 7 years into this thing already leave the field unhappy, because they're underpaid, they're overworked. And yeah, a lot of it is the field as a whole has some issues, but most of it is on that individual person. Like you can do things to separate yourself and improve your own quality of life.
Yeah, and it's something that you take home, and before you notice, like every time someone asks you about your job, you're saying something negative, and you hear yourself talk, and you realize that you see the wrong side of everything, and it's hard to acknowledge that when you're like very deep into it, like take a step back from your own like life and have perspective. So it is the quicksands effect, is it? Like you're just trying to take your foot out by dragging it with your hands.
Yeah.
You just stick your face in the sands and be like, oops, should have not done that. Now you're dead.
Well, what's one thing that you guys do there, whether it be intern related or as a staff you said you're in year 5, how do you stay, on the cutting edge and to avoid, complacency while still having your systems in place and operating as a well-run machine?
Yeah, I think it really comes from just conversations with other coaches. Like I think the more you're in this, the more your network grows and you meet more people, you learn from more people. And you're always, what I really love about having these part-time positions is you get so many new people walking in the door with different experiences. Like Chula Loomis came here from the Minnesota Vikings, brought in some great ideas with him. He's, goes to FAU, he has different ideas. Hunter Lakey, who's one of our undergraduate interns, he interned with Zach Dakent last summer, comes back. We're asking him, learning from him what Zach did, because he's a guy who does an unreal job, especially with the intern side too. Then this summer, he went and interned with Pete Rimis and the guys at Texas A&M. Pete comes back. He's teaching us, went through kind of what their summer outline looked like. So the people on your staff, the people that leave your staff, John Waters goes to Arkansas State with Jeff Jones, who I have a ton of respect for, learns from him. It's just continue to have conversations with these people who have a different experience coming in, and they continue to have different experiences as they leave. And then, people like you, Mike Tucker, the Sprint Timber Kier, et cetera, Jay, all these guys that you have conversations with and you can learn from, I think just continue to make you better at what you're doing. And, just talking to as many people as you can, I think is where you continue to learn after you really understand the basics of everything.
No, I think that's that's 100% true. And I think it's, again, goes back to what Fernando said, where you're actually going to listen to what other people have to say. And you're not like, hey, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. I've been here for X number of years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So again, I want to thank you for your time, be respectful of your time here. So if there's anything that you want to leave, our listeners or members with, but thank you for talking all things, staff and interns with us. Where can people follow you on any social media or be able to reach out to you guys about, possibly interning?
Yeah. Elon, I think it's like Elon Performance on Twitter and Instagram. Always send us a direct message. My own email, DeMarco@elon.edu. Reach out anything internship related. Happy to have as many people as they want to intern and come learn. Any questions, feel free. Strength Coach Network, you can always respond on there as well. But appreciate you guys having me on.
Thanks, man. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it? You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.